fence line where the wild winds run, where the skies stretch wide and kiss the sun. The sagebrush whispers, the rivers hum. This land's a story just begun. Wyoming calls where the heart beats free. Mountains rise and dreams run deep. Past the borders, past the sign, there's a world alive beyond the fence line. Boots hit gravel and the prairie sings with every hoofbeat. The frontier rings from ranchers' hands to miners' veins. The spirit of the West remains. Wyoming calls where the heart beats free. Mountains rise and dreams run deep. Past the borders, past the sign, there's a world alive beyond the fence line. So come ride with me through the dust and time. Find the soul of Wyoming beyond the fence line, beyond the fence beyond the fence line, beyond the fence
Welcome to Wyoming Beyond the Fence Line, where we step past the headlines and into the truth. This show isn't about left or right, it's about what's real in Wyoming, across the country, and around the world. No spin, no talking points, just facts, context, and honest conversation. If you're tired of being managed instead of informed, you're in the right place. Let's go beyond the fence line. And now, here is your host, Joseph Kibler, candidate for Wyoming governor in 2026.
Hey, good morning and happy Monday, Wyoming. Joseph Kibler here, your host, Wyoming Beyond the Fence Line, where we go beyond the fence line. We go outside the echo chambers. What a novel idea, right? We go outside the political talking points and narrative to try to give you some I guess you could say, unfiltered truth on the issues that concern each and every one of us every day. And today we're going to talk economy. Yeah, I know, right? And I've been actually been trying to get this show done for a couple of weeks, as you guys know. And work has been sort of sucking me dry a little bit, especially on the last two Fridays when I was going to try to do this show. So we're going to do it today. So, all right. Well, welcome in. It's good to have you guys here. Happy, what is it? Gosh, we're almost at the end of another month. I cannot believe it. Where has March gone? You know what? The primaries are going to be here before we know it in August, and then we're going to be at the general election in November. We're all going to blink, and we're going to have new leaders elected in all sorts of positions across this state, the legislature, Washington, D.C., the governor's office, the executive branches here in Wyoming. We will have new faces, new people to lead us. And I look forward to that. Look forward to being your next governor, should you choose to honor me with that privilege in November when we get on the ballot. So we seek the nomination of the Constitution Party of Wyoming to bring things back to the basics. You know, the number one issue that you guys told me you cared about last November was the economy. I think all of us, this is what matters most to us. And I feel like it's a punching bag. Do you guys feel like when you go to the gas pump? Wow. Oh boy, I can't talk this morning. When you go to the gas pump and you put that nozzle into your car, do you feel like I feel like I'm a punching bag when I do that right now. It's like we thought we were done with spending $100 to fill our gas tank, and yet here we are again, where they tell us a short-term pain for long-term gain. I wonder how long the pain will be, because I know if you're anything like me, our family, you're feeling the crunch, you're feeling the pinch economically. And so where do I stand on Wyoming and the economy and the things that we do here in the state, but really looking at what's going on, everything going on all at once, data centers and nuclear power and wind expansion and energy conversations and everything going on at once. And you know what I think and I feel like is being missed is you and I are being missed so much in this discussion about the economy. But before I get into Wyoming specifically, I think we need to recognize that our economy here in Wyoming, it doesn't exist in a bubble. What happens in Washington and in the world is affecting our daily lives. I look at the cost of living for my family, and I was preparing for this show today. It occurred to me it costs about 50% more to provide for my family than it did just a few years ago. And I think about the reality of that and how hard I have to work, we all have to work to provide for our families. And it doesn't matter for most of us, where you are socially or economically, unless you're super wealthy, you're unaffected by this. But most of us are looking at this and going, how long can we continue to do this? When the cost of living for raising our families is thousands of dollars more a month than it used to be. And we're all working harder for less. And God's going to provide for us. And by the way, I'm going to wrap the show up today, a little later, with some encouraging words regarding that. But let's talk about the fact that things don't seem to be getting a whole lot better when it comes to economy, right, for us. And most of that, by the way, you guys, is national and world global stage, right? We're at war, and whether you like it or not, and then, by the way, this show is not whether I agree or like the war or not, but these things are affecting us. The cost of our energy is going up, which, of course, is going to cause everything else to keep going up. And it's tough for us. But what is happening globally and nationally is affecting us. We keep being told or given the idea that things are getting better and that inflation will go down and that the GDP is good, but you have to look at those numbers. How are those numbers calculated? And are those things that are actually benefiting you and I? Us folks on the ground, us Main Street people that go to work, get up and go to work every day. How is that affecting us? Because it is, it's affecting us. And again, today's show, I call it the punching bag because I literally feel like every time I go to the grocery store, I'm being punched in the stomach. Every time I go to the gas pump, I'm being punched in the stomach. And I think you guys feel the same way. And these decisions are being made elsewhere. And some of those decisions are being made here, and we'll talk about that. But it impacts how we land in our economy. So you're going to learn today where I stand on the economy in general, my approach to the economy. And by the way, let me say this up front. I don't pretend to be this economic giant. I just live every day. And so I know how it feels. I know what it's like. And I also think there are ways that we can improve this, but we're going to have to make some hard decisions. But in addition to that, I do question, and I'm being honest with you guys here, completely transparent. I do question whether we are in some ways beyond the point of no return on some of these things. If I'm being real and I'm being objective and I'm being honest and logical, I can't help but wonder if we are beyond the point of no return in some of these things. Because today I'm going to talk about how the government has distorted the economy and the marketplace. I'm going to talk about how we keep being told one thing, but something else is going on with the man behind the curtain, or what's going on behind the curtain is different than what we're being told as people, as U.S. citizens, as residents of Wyoming. So let's dig into this deeper. Let's face it, it's not just about the money. This is about life, liberty, and integrity. This is about a whole bunch of other things. And do people have the freedom to create, to build, to take the risks, or are we constantly navigating a system that slows it down, that distorts the marketplace, that removes the fair playing field from the economy? And I would say yes, in many ways, our market and economy is so distorted and now so affected by global events that it is very, very difficult. It will be difficult to turn this around. Why does it feel like we all have this constant pressure on us economically? I was just talking to my wife the other day and I'm like, I noticed that nobody's buying the chicks at Murdoch's Tractor Supply, stuff like that. Normally those chicks are sold right away, right? As soon as the chicks go into the store, chick days, those chicks are being bought, right? People go and buy those up. But we raise chicks and incubate chicks too. Nobody's buying our chicks. That's an economic indicator. Maybe it's, we'll call it the chick indicator. Okay, so we're going to use that as an economic indicator today. People aren't buying the baby chicks at the stores, aren't buying our baby chicks. That tells me something. That tells me that people can't afford to have additional mouths to feed, even though they might like to have some of those animals, but they just can't do it. It's interesting to me that the establishment, the Republican Party back in October, November had their Central Committee meeting, and one of the things that was not on their priority list was the cost of living, interestingly enough, and the economy. It was kind of interesting to me because when I surveyed Wyoming, that was the number one issue, and here we are talking about it today. But running a business feels tighter. Running a household feels tighter. I mean, this is getting to a point where we can't do it anymore, folks. We just can't. So I want to dive into some Wyoming-specific economic issues to talk to you guys about data centers, nuclear, wind, where I stand on this stuff, because I know it's important to you guys, but it's also important to the economy. How do we move forward? And then we're going to talk about what's missing in the conversation, maybe. And then we're going to close up with just kind of where I'm at, where I stand on these things. So let's talk through some of these things that affect Wyoming economy. Again, I feel like what's going on in the world is probably the number one factor right now for all of us. And we're seeing that. And we all know it. Those unaffected by it tell us everything's okay. It's going to be fine. I disagree. And I'm sure you do too. So let's take a look. So let's talk about some of the real economic issues. Let's talk about data centers. I actually know quite a few people living here in Cheyenne. You meet a lot of people that have come here and they work for the data centers. And living here in Cheyenne, you meet a lot of people in general that work at the data centers. And by the way, there's 14 more being built right now here in Cheyenne, is my understanding, with many more on the way. And the question we have to ask about the data centers and stuff like this is, how is it being structured and who is it benefiting, and who is just supporting it? How is this affecting our economy? I'm not talking about government economy, by the way, because boy, all this stuff seems to really, really have a positive effect on the government's economy, but a negative effect on the people's economy. As we're seeing these data centers gobble up land and wire and power, the people really have the right to ask the question, what about us? As our energy bills are going out the roof, quite literally, and people are struggling to pay those bills. And yet we keep adding more and more and more, and that increases our cost. What are we doing for the people when it comes to these data centers? And I'm going to get into where I stand on all these issues in a minute. But this is happening in Wyoming, in our country. But Wyoming is a favorite place for this stuff. And it is affecting us. What we need to do is we need to slow down all this. Nuclear power. I just read an article over the weekend. Wyoming leading the way for nuclear power. By the way, I'm not opposed to economic expansion that makes sense for the people of Wyoming, whether it's nuclear or data centers, whatnot. But I think that we need to step back and slow down and count the cost. We need to ask ourselves, if we are going to do these things, how can we bring direct benefit to the people of Wyoming? Guess what? The people that have to live here, like you and I. Instead of these massive tax breaks and incentives and handouts, subsidies, all of the things that go on behind the closed doors while you and I are just out trying to survive. We don't have time to show up at all these meetings every other day to make our voice heard. Our representatives are selling us out in so many ways. We need to give it back to the people. Let the people decide. Bring the benefit to the people. Bring the pros and the cons. Because let's face it, there can be pros and cons to these things. Economic development and expansion and new ideas. But we don't give it to the people in a way that makes sense. We don't put the people first when it comes to the conversation. Sure, maybe we go through the motions, and I feel like so often these commission meetings and council meetings and other meetings that we have are mere formalities in a decision that's already been made when it comes to nuclear power or data centers or whatnot. And we're only told parts and bits of the pieces of what goes on here. Let's demand that these people want to play in our sandbox, if you will, here in Wyoming, that it be of great benefit to the people, not taking from the people, not usurping the people's authority, but bringing benefit. And by the way, they can afford to do so, to benefit the people, to pay taxes, to equal the playing field on all of these things. Recently in Washington, they wanted to pass some legislation that would allow data centers to bypass a ton of rules that other businesses have to follow. In other words, if you wanted to, let's say, build a gravel pit in Wyoming, or a data center, that somehow that data center would be, when it would be able to go around a whole bunch of the rules. But you're getting your gravel pit in or whatever, you would have to follow all the rules. So rules for thee, but not for me. We can't do that, you guys. The free market, which, by the way, we have, for all intended purposes, destroyed, can it be fixed? Can the free market be fixed? I don't know. We've distorted it so far, it would be very hard to go back. That doesn't mean we don't try, But let's be realistic about it. So, anyways, great desire to have the playing field be different for data centers, different for these different projects, and thus making it harder for you and I. But these big companies can just go around the rules. No, not okay. Not okay. Wind projects. Another massive subsidized economic boondoggle in Wyoming and around this country. Those things can't stand on their own 2 feet. No, I guess they're one post, right? They're one tall pole. Without your and our dollars. We pay for it. We pay for it to get created. We subsidize it during its lifetime, and then someone else pays for the power at a reduced rate, a reduced tax rate. And we give all these special incentives for these things while destroying our lands. And then, of course, there's a long-term effect too. Anyway, when we step back and we look at the economy, we know that there's so many factors going into this. I just checked the price of oil this morning. It's over $100 a barrel, up from $60 last year. Doesn't look like that's going to go down anytime soon. But we're just getting more of the same in the different way when it comes to the economy. So what's missing in this conversation when it comes to the economy? And what is my approach to economic development or not? How do I look at these things? So here we go. What's missing in the conversation is we're getting pulled into these camps. This is what political parties do. This is what economies do, where we're getting pulled into these for or against camps, right? Pro this, anti that. And that's just, guys, that's too shallow. We need to have the real conversation. We need to ask, how are we making these decisions? Are we thinking long term? Or is it, okay, well, this is what's good for today. This is what's good for today. You know. Are we being honest about the trade-offs with the people or with ourselves? Because every one of these projects could probably have an upside, but everyone also has an impact. And we're not talking about both. If we're only talking about one or the other, we're not having the real conversation. So here's my approach to Wyoming, to the economy at large, and just my honest assessment of where we're at on things. Number one, when it comes to nuclear, when it comes to data centers, when it comes to all of these things, we need to slow down. Slow down enough to think clearly about it. You know what? I am not someone who's going to sit here and go, let's stop progress. But let's slow down to make sure that it's actually good progress. And what I mean is good progress for the people, not just for these massive corporations. By the way, many of them getting corporate welfare from our tax dollars, but that's another discussion. So first, we need to slow down. Second, we need to bring the conversation closer to the people that it affects. And we need to give them the whole conversation. See, we only hear the pieces that either make us mad or make us glad. We don't hear all of the pieces together so that we can make educated decisions. And that's by design, to keep us divided, to keep us constantly fighting about something, whether it's data centers, nuclear power, or whatever. But we don't have the whole conversation because most people don't want to have the whole conversation. They'd rather keep us divided because that's how they get elected. That's how they get put into office. You elect me, and I'm going to fight for your side of this issue rather than having a principled conversation about the whole issue. So that's the second thing I do with the economy. First is let's slow down. Second, let's get it back to the people. Third, let's focus on long-term strength. What does that look like? You know, so often, well, we're told right now, all of this pain that we're having, you and I at the gas pump and so on, short-term pain for long-term gain. Okay. Let's look at long-term strength. Let's stop thinking about this short-term thing. Let's look at what this really looks like from a long-term standpoint in the economy. It's going to be hard to go back, folks. Like I said earlier in the show, I don't necessarily believe I have all the answers on these issues. But I do also honestly ask the question, have we so distorted the economy at this point, primarily because of government, that it cannot be turned around? I ask that question honestly, and I'd love to hear what you think about that. So, we're talking a little bit about my approach right now and just kind of what's going on in the economy. So, first, slow down long enough to look at it. Is it good progress for the people? Second, bring it back to the people, bring it back to the community. Third, does it focus on long term strength and not just short term gains? So, I'm flipping that statement. Is it short term or long term? And fourth, how does it benefit Wyoming? Are we just a host to these things? And that's a big difference. We want these people to participate, these companies to participate in Wyoming, make Wyoming a better place. You know, sharing just kind of something that's kind of hit me hard is, as you guys know, I've been doing this for quite some time, and I've had a bunch of folks that have supported my campaign, at least verbally or in other ways, let me know, hey, Joseph, we're leaving. We're moving out of Wyoming. We can't afford to live here anymore. We can't find jobs that suit us to cause us to stay. That's pretty telling, folks. We're exporting the talent of the things that Wyoming is good at because we're exchanging it for things that we're not necessarily super good at. We need to ask those questions. So, in closing up this conversation about the economy, I'm going to say a couple of key principles that I think would free the Wyoming economy back up, but with the caveat that if we do it alone and we can't get the nation to buy into some of these ideas, it may be difficult for us to succeed. And that is this: we have got to stop subsidizing and granting everything under the sun with taxpayer dollars. We need to allow industry and commercial industry in our state that can stand on its own 2 feet without being on the back of taxpayer dollars, whether that's federal or state. Government has got to stop being the ones that pick winners and losers. Instead, you let the free market do that. The Wyoming Business Council comes to mind. You know what? Fine. We want to have the Wyoming Business Council. Great. Privatize it. Not with my tax dollars. Privatize it with individual, with investment that you have to be accountable to, and see if it can succeed on its own, not with my tax dollars. It distorts the marketplace. You know what I love, what Taylor Haynes says, previous candidate for Wyoming governor a couple of times. Taylor Haynes says that the very problem with our marketplace and our economy is government subsidies and grants that make the playing field untenable for people who wake up in the morning and go to work because they have they don't have the advantage that the people that are getting government handouts have, and it distorts the entire economy and marketplace. You want to drive the cost down of things, get government out of the way. I did a show, was it last week, where I showed that 25% of everything you buy, the cost of that good, so let's say that good is $10, $2.50 of that is government intervention in the marketplace, whether that's regulation or taxes or fees or you name it. 25% of that $10 good that you buy, $2.50 of that, is because of bureaucracy. That's not counting the sales tax and the other things that you pay. So how do you lower the cost of goods, whether it's going to the University of Wyoming or whether it's buying that box of cereal or that gas at the pump? You get bureaucracy and government out of the way. You stop paying for it indirectly with your tax dollars and your sweat and your hard work. Now, don't get me wrong. I think we should pay taxes, but that's a different discussion. I've done shows about that. My idea for taxes is very simple. That's not this discussion today. But the way you solve the economic pain that we have is you get government out of the way. You get bureaucracy out of it, out of the thing. Government was not meant to run education. Government was not meant to run healthcare. Government was not meant to have its fingers all in every insurance that you have. Government was not designed to do all of those things in this country. You want to know why things cost so much? Look no further than bureaucracy. So, how do we fix the economy? We get bureaucracy out of the way. The question is, can we? That is the question. Can we elect enough leaders that say enough is enough when it comes to the economy? I don't know the answer to that question. I'd like to be optimistic and say that we could do that. But that can't just happen here in Wyoming. That would have to happen naturally, where we say no more. No more government intervention in free market. Well, actually, we don't live in a free market anymore, but we'd like to get it back. We'd have to do those things to really grow our economy and give the economy back to the people. And by the way, make the Wyoming economy something that we can afford to live in. We have some hard decisions to make in our upcoming elections, folks. And I know we all say it's the most important election ever. And that may be true. That may be true. But if we don't start being something different in the way that we approach things, including the economy, and I think I've hopefully been very clear today where I stand on the economy and what I would like to see happen with the economy and what I know needs to be done to make the economy viable again and affordable again. I know what needs to be done. We've talked about that today, but the question is, can we do it? I hope we can. We'll see. So here it is. At the end of the day, Wyoming is in a unique position. We have resources. We have opportunity. We have attention in some ways. That means we also have pressure and we have a choice. We can keep reacting to everything coming our way or start being intentional about what we allow and how we move forward. Not being extreme, not being reactive, but just being clear. It means thinking better. It means leading better. It means choosing wisely. And it means that you, the people, need to be involved in those decisions. And bureaucracy needs to get out of the way. So, wrapping up the show today, I want to talk. I'm actually going to read just an encouraging word for all of us because I know we all feel this economic pressure, and I'm going to just wrap up the show by saying this before I read this final bit, and that is this: I feel the punching bag. I know we all do. We're all feeling the economic punching bag right now. We all know there are a dozen reasons why we are where we are, and that's not what this show is about today. But I want to remind you guys that in the book of Matthew, that God makes some promises to us, and we should hold to these promises because things are hard right now, especially economically. But this is what it says in Matthew. So it says, "Therefore I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. For they neither sow nor reap, they neither gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not more important or of more value than they are? What of us worrying can add another, inch or a cubit to our statute? I'd like to be a little taller. There's nothing I can do about that. I'm going to be as tall as I am, 5'8", for the rest of my life. So I shouldn't worry about it. So why do we worry about the clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, and yet even Solomon in all his glory is not arrayed like one of them. Now, if God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and gone tomorrow, how much more will he clothe you and take care of you? Therefore, don't worry about what you will eat or what you will drink or what you will wear. For after all these things the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father knows that you have need of these things. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Therefore, don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own things. Sufficient is the day of its own troubles." So just a reminder, you guys, that in spite of the economic challenges and the fact that, I don't know, I can't tell you, and you're like, "Oh, Joseph, wow, you're running for governor, and you don't have all the answers." I don't. And I will never sit here and pretend that I do have all the answers. That God will take care of us if we love him, we obey him, we put that first. And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but he'll take care of us. He promises to do that. So let's wrap this up. Let's have a real conversation about these things. Let's talk about the real issues in the economy. Like it happens here and it stays here. And that's just, we've got to look at the bigger picture, folks. We got to look at how government has so distorted the free market and the economy. And we are affected by things that we don't have control over. All right, you guys? Our economy, it didn't used to be so affected by every minute of everything going on in the world, but it is now. And so we have to have that conversation. So let's go back to simple constitutional government. Let's get bureaucracy out of the way of so many aspects of our lives. Let's have government do what it should do, which is, provide a place for us to enjoy life and liberty and leave it at that. All right. Well, that'll wrap up today's show about the economy, you guys. Hope you guys have a great, blessed week. What's good? What's on the show the rest of the week? I'm so glad you asked. I'm going to talk about, can we disagree without dividing? I'm going to have that conversation with you guys probably tomorrow. Why do we keep having the same problems? I'm going to also talk about why the same problems keep getting the same results. We're going to talk about that this week too. We're going to talk about leadership versus position. And what do we actually have in all of that right now today, nationally, maybe here in Wyoming? We're going to talk about all that. I'm not sure what I'm going to do on Friday's show yet, but sometimes things come up during the week, and then we'll talk about that on the show. I have been thinking about maybe we'll do a couple of shows on the Wyoming Constitution, maybe on the Constitution of the United States as well, because I think that would be some interesting discussions to have. So we'll probably do that on the show a couple of times as well, which I think would be a lot of fun. I want to mention, if you guys want to be on the show and talk about something that matters to you, reach out to me. I'd love to have you on the show. And with that, let's wrap up this show today with a little bit of, let's see, what music am I feeling today? Let's see. It's one of those weeks. How about Boots on the Breakfast Table, you guys? God bless. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Cracks open that kitchen window, coffee steam, biscuits in the pan.
Mama hums grace while the radio rattles, Boots on the breakfast table, hurry if you can.
Kids tug on jeans, chasing their lunches, arguing over who feeds what. Y'all grab them buckets, daylight's burning, granddad laughs, this place is all we've got. This is a ranch life rhythm, hear that gravel choir, old truck coughing prayers through a barbed wire fight. Boots on the breakfast table, dust laid bare. Morning breaks hard, but the face still there. Hands up high, hearts in the hay. We pull our weight, we earn our way. Long days, early mornings, right or wrong. Gritting our bones where the good Lord's strong. We're right where we're meant to be. Yeah, that boots on the table life fits us perfectly. Fence line leaning, post hole digging, rust red dirt in every crease. Little girl riding on a feed sack wagon, waving at the heifers like a Saturday parade down Main Street.
Sunday clothes hanging by the back door, Bible marked with names and years. We bow our heads neath the wide sky steeple, praying over rain and over brand new steers.
This is ranch life, a rhythm, hear that gravel choir. Truck coughing prayers through a barbed wire fire. Boots on the breakfast table, dust
circles and went whip trails.
We laughed so hard that the chair legs danced, thanking heaven for another chance to rise with the rooster right through the dawn. As long as these old hills keep holding on. This is ranch life.